I'm starting to think this Female Furies miniseries was nothing more than a 6-issue troll. Honestly, there's no other way to take it because this issue of Female Furies found a new pocket dimension of stupid. So let's recap real quick. Granny Panties kills Darkseid's mom to get into his good graces. He bones her to basically make her prove she's loyal. Granny Panties then tortures children and then creates the Female Furies. The leader of the Furies, insufferable Twat, gets boned by McGrabby Hands. Twat tells the other Furies and they don't care, but when she dies, Xena Warrior Princess suddenly gives a shit. She escapes away with Fancy Lad, and the remaining Furies follow her through the Boom 2 portal she conveniently didn't bother to close. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is that the writer, Cecil Castellucci, wants people to think sexual violence and harassment against women is bad. And to make this point, she decided to tell a story about how women are oppressed in literal hell. That's what Apocalypse is, a total hell world where everyone is a slave of Darkseid and everyone's life is nothing but suffering and pain. Cecil wants you to feel sorry for people like Granny Goodness, a woman who tortures and murders children, because Darkseid taps that ass from time to time. This is the setup of the story, and to get you to feel sympathy, Cecil writes the most unlikable characters imaginable, and then turns every serious scene into a joke by either having the characters be comically villainous, insanely stupid, or Cecil will just turn the scene itself into a weird parody, stripping away the little power and weight the scene actually had. None of the characters have a lick of seriousness to them. The tone of the scene shifts from over-the-top serious to Caillou-level humor, and that's how issue 5 opens. Xena Warrior Princess shows up at Fancy Lad's escapist job, and because she's trying to prove someone can actually be dumber than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she sees him in a giant glass tube, she breaks down in tears thinking he's drowned to death instead of using her freakishly superhuman strength to break the fucking glass. Meanwhile, Mark Waid never bothers to tell her it's just a magic trick, even when she's clearly weeping over Fancy Lad. Well, at least Mark Waid stayed true to his asshole character. Then Fancy Lad just shows up and he's like, "Oh, you found me. Bitch, you weren't playing hide and seek. She thought you were dead. Her weeping on the glass is what woke you up." And yet somehow, with her head just inches away from the tube, Xena Warrior Princess didn't hear any of this water moving, any of the chains coming off, not a thing. Then she says, "I feel that I would know where you were in the storm. But your feminist sense can't tell you whether you know he's alive when he's 4 inches from your face." So then Mark Waid tells him that the Furies were spotted in the park, and this dude is just oblivious to everything. Xena Warrior Princess is a female Fury. For all he knows, she could be a honeypot. Well, the whole goddamn hive. But no, he just casually throws out info like he knows she's on the good side now. Then Fancy Lad has to explain to Xena, a well-trained fighter and mercenary fully equipped with knowledge of espionage tactics, how it's possible the Furies found them. He tells her that it must have been a tracker, and she's surprised. A tracker? Really? I thought it would have been that big-ass boom tube I left open wide enough for a Greyhound bus to go through. She's over here like she's playing hide and seek, standing in the middle of an empty room with her eyes closed, sounding like a gender-fluid John Cena. "You can't see me, bitch, and nobody can miss your big ass." Speaking of asses, Cecil decided to show us just how awkward feminist love stories are with one of the cringiest scenes in the series. Now, in any normal playful action romance story, if Mr. Miracle said there was a tracker on Big Barda, Barda would search for it herself, fail to find it, and then Scott would get it for her, or he'd just go searching for it, Night and Day style, you know, that movie with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz. She'd be miffed but kind of turned on, and he'd be obviously flirtatious but play it serious. But Cecil Castellucci is a feminist, so subtle and sensual ain't her bag, baby. Instead, we get Xena Warrior Princess saying to Fancy Lad, "Scott, you have my permission to touch me to look for it on my person." Jesus Christ, even Vicky from Small Wonder wasn't this awkward. There's feminism for you, trying to make so-called consent sexy. Don't you want your feminist man sexy touching your neck, your pelvis, your knee? Because those are all the places where you'd hide a tracking device. Under the jaw and places Xena can fucking see. There's no way the tracker is on her knee. And her knee, you're sexy touching her knee while she's standing? Thank you, Cecil Castellucci, for showing exactly why some people should watch porn. Now, do me a favor, go listen to a Prince album so you learn how to actually flirt. Anyway, Fancy Lad finds a tracker in Xena's hair and they flee. Meanwhile, the Furies ease on down the perfectly straight road on a Dutch angle. Seriously, Adriana Mello, have you been watching Batman? Why are all their lower halves slanted to the right? Didn't you want to fix that? So the Furies find a tracker which Fancy Lad and Xena Warrior Princess left in front of some random people's house because fuck them. You've got murderous mercenaries hunting you down. What's the worst they'll do to these people when they find the signal? Break into the home and murder everyone who isn't Big Barda? And of course, gender fluid John Cena gets to jump on the Furies by hiding in plain sight on the roof. She's literally just on top of the house, which means the Furies should have seen her big ass as soon as they spotted the house. Then we have the most awkward fight ever. Watch as Xena Warrior Princess becomes a giant due to terrible perspective. Marvel at her prowess as she literally punches up while the other Furies lie down, standing up. Look, as one is so embarrassed by how poorly she's drawn, she covers her face. You will be amazed as Mr. Miracle does his best Tuxedo Mask impression and becomes a useless man. I mean, a man. He's so male, always overestimating his abilities. And then prepare yourself for the stupendous climax when the Furies just give the fuck up. Xena and Fancy Lad prove to be too much for 4. Count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 super strong assassins. So they just give up. Oh, but that's not the part. This is the part. Lashina says Insufferable Twat would have tipped the balance, but Xena Warrior Princess says she would have fought against the Furies. And then Lashina says, and you need to look at the screen to see I'm not making this up. We all felt the loss of Orally. I seem to remember that none of you gave a damn at all. Look, it's right here. Y'all totally didn't give a shit. So now you care. And then she asks Xena what made her change her mind. And Xena says, Willick forced himself on her. That broke her. That broke me. No, it didn't. When Insufferable Twat told you about it, you told her to woman up. Look, it's right there. 3 issues ago on the second page. Cecil, did you forget your own scripts? I know you're writing this vagina monologue and all, but literally everything they just said is wrong. You're flipping the story now, I guess to try to make the Furies look sympathetic, but they didn't care for poor fucking issues, girl. You can't just change your mind at the last minute because they all look like bitches. I mean, third-wave feminists. Then we go back to Granny Panties, and Steppenwolf is being an evil man because men are evil. Except he actually has a point. He says it's been too long since the Furies checked in, and it has. In any normal story, Steppenwolf's tone would make him a dick, but not wrong. But since this is a feminist story, he's just got to be evil for pointing out something even Granny Panties agrees with. Feminist storytelling, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of shitty storytelling, we get this scene where the Furies, the female Furies, Darkseid's most badass force of warriors, mope around because back on planet Hell, bad things happen to them. Xena Warrior Princess says, I started thinking about all the times that I had been touched when I didn't want to be. When did that happen? Because before you acted like it not only hadn't ever happened, but that if it did happen, you'd kill whoever tried it. Or had been leered at. Oh fuck, people are looking at me. Whatever should I do? I get that it's not the greatest feeling in the world to be stared at, but y'all bitches are living on apocalypse. Being stared at shouldn't even make the list of the most trivial shit that's been done to you. Or been overlooked. So it's misogynistic not to be sexually interested in women. I thought feminists were all about consent. Don't men get to choose who they want to have sex with? Or is male consent just a given and they have to bone whichever women want them? That's a rhetorical question. I know the answer is yes. Or made to feel invisible. Cecil, I know you're struggling to come up with bullshit, feminist talking points, but that's the same shit as before. Have you been listening to Jess Phillips or something? Look, it's not sexual harassment not to harass you. The men of Apocalypse are going, I wouldn't even rape you. And you're going, sexist. No, Cecil. Men don't want to rape them, and the Furies don't want to be raped. They're literally getting exactly what they want, but you're making it sound like you think it's sexual violence to not commit sexual violence. And Xena's little rant apparently works on the Furies. After ignoring and mocking the insufferable twat for 4 issues, now the Furies want revenge on McGrabby Hands, so they decide to go back to Apocalypse to punish Willick. Xena cuts a deal where Fancy Lad gets to live and she gets to go back to Earth when they get their revenge. They go back, lie about killing Fancy Lad, and then kidnap McGrabby Hands, who begs and pleads in what I guess every feminist hears whenever a man says he's innocent. I'm an innocent man. I love women. I have a sister, I think. I was born from a mother. I'm the real victim here. I'm just a man, loyal to Darkseid. I only hurt people the way others cause hurt. No different from anyone else. And this is all true. Willick, like the female Furies, is a slave. Every horrible thing they've been through, including rape, he's been through. He's literally the product of a world designed to create horrible people, just like the female Furies. So the scene is a pointless, hypocritical contradiction or typical feminist theory, whichever rolls off the tongue better. I don't feel sorry for Willick, but I don't feel sorry for the Furies either. They're all evil, willing to do the most horrific things for whatever reason. For example, the Furies decide to punish McGrabby Hands by putting him in the machine where a micro black hole will stretch him apart for eternity. So he's going to suffer forever for things that the Furies themselves have probably done. I mean, we know Big Bone here has probably done it because nobody's willing to fuck that. This is justice. Perpetual punishment for doing what he was literally raised to do, just like the female Furies. Really. And look at Granny Panty's face as she watches this happen. That's the look every feminist gets when she hears about another Catholic sex abuse scandal. And since this is a feminist story, even as this goes down, the women get screwed. Darkseid sees what happened, but instead of appointing Granny Panties as Willick's successor, he gives the job to some guy's no-name nephew. Meanwhile, the Furies plot their revenge on the other men. You know, the men who never actually did anything to them but deserve to suffer because patriarchy. What? This is a feminist book. The only good man is the empty-headed pretty boy with zero personality who defers to women all the time. All the other men are bad and deserve to die or suffer because feminism. And keep in mind, all this shit is now canon. This is now officially how things went down on Apocalypse. Women never do anything wrong, even when they're torturing and murdering children like Granny Goodness, while merely being a man makes you subject to summary revenge by a group of psychotic women hopped up on feminism and copious amounts of male tears, semen. I know this book is bad and painful to read, but this is the kind of thing you need to read so you can understand just how warped feminists can be. This isn't something Cecil was made to write. This is what she came up with all on her own. These people are deeply disturbed, incredibly sexist towards men and women, and about as uncreative as they come. You need to see this stuff so you understand where ideologies like feminism lead. You need to see what progressives will do when they have total control. It's like they looked at Stalin's Russia and went, "Hold my period blood." Actually, that's still probably better than reading this book. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.